Hello. Okay, I'm going to start this tutorial about how I use my brayers. If you haven't used brayers before, it takes a little practice to get into the swing of things with them, and I'll show you how I do it. After you've used them for a while, you may come up with some other ways that you like to use them too. So I've taped off a piece of Strathmore paper. It's about 12 by 18, and it lays nice and flat with the painter's tape around the edges. I have an extra piece of scrap paper off to the side where I load my brayers, and so far, since these are the first layers, I have mixed up some white and some phthalo blue with a little bit of black. I toned down the brightness of the phthalo blue with the black because I like that for a sky color better than just plain phthalo. These first layers, it really is just building history. And so here is my 4-inch brayer. I'll take some of the paint, some of the white paint that I have mixed up and load it on my brayer. I'll add a little bit of the phthalo blue, and then off to the side, I will roll the brayer on the scrap paper to get the paint all the way around the brayer. So here I've loaded my brayer, and I think there was a little bit of black in there on my scrap paper that was still wet, but it's not going to matter because this is just the first layer. So I just start back and forth. I find that at first you have to load your brayer quite a bit. You can see that the paper takes up a lot of the paint to begin with. So here I am, I'm loading it again, and as long as I'm just doing white, I'm just going to put it directly onto the paper and roll it out that way. Back and forth. I find that I tend to do a horizon line in most of my paintings. It seems like the format is, and the composition is a lot stronger. Now I'm going to add a little bit of blue, but since this is such a strong blue, I'm going to put some white on top of that. So that's the way I load my brayer. Now you can see you have to spread that out, and that's quite blue. And you just keep working it back and forth. And although I'm probably going to end up with a horizon line, I go all ways with my brayer on the paper. It adds a lot of texture and depth as you build up the layers. And even though the bottom of this, the foreground of this painting, is going to end up being a different color, doesn't matter, because these first layers will be probably not seen at all. And if they are, it gives it more depth if you have little bits of color peeking through. These first layers are just fun. You're really not thinking of anything. You're just getting some history on the paper. And like I said, the first layers, the paper absorbs the paint pretty quick. So you end up with those first layers using a lot of paint, but it ends up that it's just going to build some of that depth. Loaded it again, push it off to the sides to make sure I get those sides filled in. Honestly, sometimes, I mean, anything goes here. You can just put the paint right down on the paper and spread it out with your brayer. I've found that going one way only with a brayer spreads the paint out better, and it gets spread out evenly across the paper. I still want to fill in these edges here. And sometimes I start using the edge of the brayer to make some marks and lines. I think you can see that. It just makes the depth pop out more. Now I'll do these bottom edges here. And usually I will apply a couple layers and work on the depth and the texture, and then I let it dry. So there's some downtime between layers when you're letting it dry, but I usually work on more than one. There's something in here that I'm going to get rid of. Okay. Any mark or line just adds a lot of interest. So now maybe a little bit more blue, because I'm pretty sure I want a sky in this one. And sometimes everything changes as I get deeper into the layers and I see something else. Being an intuitive painter, I try not to make too many decisions right off the bat because I don't know what I'm going to end up seeing here. And then I'll put a little more white on here and load it on my scrap piece of paper and bounce around a little bit so it's not all so even. Anything goes. You'll find that after a while you'll find your own technique that works for you. Okay, I'm going to let this dry and I'll be back.